Hey everyone, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. I want to talk about Rob Liefeld because he is a character. I don't know what else to call him that's accurate. We're going to look at some stuff just because it's funny, but there's also this reminiscing of better times in comics. And it's not just Rob Liefeld. It's a lot of people. I hear it frequently. People miss the golden age of comics. Not like literally the golden age. Some people might. But what was the best time in comics? And Rob Liefeld, he clearly loves 90s comics, especially, that was his heyday, I would say. I've been more into comics from the 80s, though I got to say, I told you I was going to be collecting the Daredevil run that Frank Miller did, and it's a lot of issues. So it's going to take me a little while. I've got three. I'm 3 in right now. One of these was made in the 70s, though. So 3 in. I got to say, every time I read 80s comics, there's just something about it. I like it. I like 80s comics, generally speaking, better than 90s comics, but there's some good stuff from the 90s as well. So anyway, that's regardless, neither here nor there. Rob Liefeld had some funny things. Buckle in, this is always fun. All right, so Rob does this thing where he will talk to somebody that has been in his mentions saying something about him, but he's not responding to them. He's just sort of saying it out to the Twitter sphere. I got to wonder who he's talking about sometimes. Here's a great tweet from him. He says, "Hey, you, yeah, I read your ridiculous tweet. The one where you act like you have a career even remotely resembling mine. You didn't and you won't. Keep dreaming." I swear there's this level of comic artists, maybe in particular, maybe comic artists. Don't be mad at me, but it's almost like little man syndrome. You know what I mean? Like I'm a superstar and everyone should know I'm a superstar, but everybody outside of comics has no idea who you are. Even Rob Liefeld, not everybody. I mean, people do ask him about things. So that was just one. It's pretty funny. I got to say there's something to be said for confidence. I will definitely give Rob that. Here's another one. This was pretty great. But I got to say, this is an opinion that would be not allowed. This would get you in trouble if basically, or literally, which is it? If anyone else said this besides Rob Liefeld, they'd be in trouble. But with Rob, it's just like, okay, it's Rob. So Rob Liefeld says, "Comic books today are not in a resurgence of creativity. Most are endless talk fest, just cackling heads. Bronze Age through 99 is a sweet spot. Do yourself a favor and check out Marvel, DC, Image Comics in those eras. Inspiring." So yeah, he did include Bronze Age, so that's cool. I like Bronze Age comics. This talk fest stuff is definitely a thing, and I want that trend to move away. I don't know if it's because of television or what. I mean, it could be any number of things. This is my one problem. I want to love Ninja Turtles, and every time I get through reading some Ninja Turtle comics, most of the entire story, most of the whole trade is standing around talking. That is not what I want to see. I want to see action, fighting, ninja stuff, at least plotting, or sneaking in the darkness, but there's just a lot of talking. All right, here's a rando on Twitter responding, saying, "Nah, Image of today is far better. Hickman on East of West and Black Monday murders, Brubaker doing his thing with Criminals and other titles, Rucka, Lark on Lazarus, etc. Plus, we have Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis, Grant Morrison, and others doing great work in other companies." Now, you can't have an opinion on comics without Eric Larson weighing in. Here he is, Eric Larson, yet again. And he says, "Honestly, it's the difference between Annie Hall and Star Wars. Yes, Annie Hall won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1997, but there's no denying that viewers flocked to see Star Wars. Present day Image is Annie Hall. 1992 Image was Star Wars." Great response here. I got to read this. Again, Chuck Black, rando on Twitter. "That's very generous to yourself and others. LMAO. You guys were more like Michael Bay movies." Just keeps getting funnier. Eric Larson is responding, "Fans were excited to be reading Image Comics in 1992, and they were really enthusiastic. And while I would not argue that all those stories were well crafted on the technical level, there was a raw energy in the books, which was both exciting and infectious." And here's Rob Liefeld responding again to Eric Larson. And Rob Liefeld says, "I would advise against diminishing the works of this era, as I have heard and seen up close and personal how near and dear these comics, stories, art, and characters are to the fans of that age. They hold these books in the highest regard. They thrilled them to the core." And I think he's talking about 1992 Image, which Eric Larson was, anyway, whatever. I just think it's funny how Rob Liefeld will say bad things about current year comics, and if anybody even that was even involved in Eric Larson, involved in Image Comics, he reminds him not to denigrate those stories, even in the most mild of ways. Just cracks me up. All right, here's another opinion by Rob Liefeld. Here we go.
Oh, and by the way, man, if you're reading today's X-Men comics and you're like even a little excited by them, like these are way better. The stuff like Byrne, Claremont, Austin, top of all time. Okay, way better. There's action. Things happen. There's consequences. People aren't talking about other people. Blah, blah, blah.
I feel like Rob Liefeld needs a YouTube channel. Whatever you think about him, I think he needs a YouTube channel. Does he have one? I should look that up. I mean, I don't see one, but he should. I would watch him just talk to himself in conversation, just go off in conversation on himself. I don't know for how long, but it would be kind of entertaining. I'm not a huge Rob Liefeld fan, but I have to say he's an incredibly interesting person. And I think part of that is that he is unapologetic with his opinions. He has nuanced opinions. He's not like parroting some kind of sanctioned advice or sanctioned opinions that the comic industry wants him to have. He's just a guy talking about comics. He's pretty happy with his success in his career, obviously. And I'll be honest, what I want to see a little bit more of is more comic creators being able to sort of vary and have some opinions without getting kind of stomped and pushed back in line. I remember Brett Booth was one of those people that talked about, I did a video on him. It was, a few months ago, and he talked about boys in comics and some of his opinions. And it was just so interesting to see so many people trying to corral him away from having that opinion. Rob Liefeld's opinions here would, on the comics used to be better. That's not something that the current comic industry wants to hear or that they like to hear, but he still says it anyway. So, hats off for that. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Downcast 2 is coming. Guys, I've got a hard decision to make. I might very well have a different cover with some amazing art from a great artist that I want to show you. And I didn't plan out everything to work this way, but I might be changing one of the covers out. If I was greedy, I'd be having 3 covers, but I'll be honest, it's like I don't really want to do 3 covers. I want to do 2 covers, and everything is planned around having 2 covers. And so I'm kind of tempted to switch one of them out. When everything gets, when things progress a little bit further, I'll loop you in a little bit more. But Downcast 2 is coming to Indiegogo very soon. We're looking at the 21st of January. It's only a couple of weeks away. So please sign up for the mailing list. I am working hard to spoil those people that sign up for the mailing list. And I promise not to spam you. So it's worth your time. It's in the description below. Thanks very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me what your thoughts are on Rob Liefeld, because if he can have opinions, so can you. Thanks very much, and see you next time.